Welcome into the second ever installment of Betting Weekly Hardball. I am Doug Kezirian, joined today by Adam the Bull, a co-host. I am fired up to chop it up, talking baseball betting, a betting show for the baseball bettor. Adam, I've enjoyed getting to know you over the last little bit, and I'm fired up given your experience and your knowledge and your humor. This should be a real fun show coming up. And looking forward to talking baseball here.
Doug, I'm super pumped as well. I was bobbing my head just now as if there was music playing. There was no music playing. Folks, you did not miss the music. It was just me being a little nuts. Doug, as you can see, he's like looking sharp. He's shaved. I'm a mess. Look at me. I look like a hockey player that refuses to shave for the playoffs. So hopefully you can put up with me there. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I love talking baseball. You love talking baseball. There's a lot of games. I was so excited about the show today that I got up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I'm looking at the Bet Rivers lines, and I'm doing all my research. I'm like, I got to pick some winners for the people today, Doug. We got to make some people rich.
Yeah, we started out of the gates pretty well. It's nice to have a Padres late rally in the eighth inning to get that win. So sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. But no, I'm fired up. And just to kind of bring people up to speed, this is Monday through Friday. 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Central, obviously, Monday through Friday, breaking down the baseball card as the week goes on. Wednesday, Thursday, there's day games of baseball. Yep. We'll have maybe some live bets. We'll track some things like that. And then obviously the show is always archived on the Betting Weekly channel here on YouTube. So really appreciate everyone tuning in. We want you to join the conversation, chime in, let us know your thoughts, questions as well. We really want to grow this community and grow the brand that is Betting Weekly, because they do such a good job in the morning, whether it be whatever time zone you are, with tennis, soccer, everything that's going on, the dojo. But, yesterday, for those just tuning in today, I want to tell you a little bit about us. I've been in the betting space my whole life, like many of us fellow misfits, but 20 plus years, really. I first moved to Las Vegas in 2005, was doing TV and radio, tracking betting, talking to odds makers, talking to professional bettors. And I went to ESPN for 11 years, continued to stay plugged in, and then pivoted within ESPN to the betting space, launched Daily Wager, wrote a column, some other articles as well for ESPN.com. And now here with Betting Weekly Hardball and both Fast Break as well, which is another new show for the NBA. That's the next hour. So 3 p.m. Eastern. We hope you join us then. But Adam, I know you've been on various shows. You're familiar name and voice to a lot of our audience, but bring people up to speed about your background.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, I was on the radio for many years. I started my career in 1999 as the play-by-play voice of the Batavia Muck Dogs, the New York Penn League affiliate of the Phillies at the time. I missed Ricky Williams by 1 year, by the way. Ricky Williams, the football player, played for the Batavia Muck Dogs in 1998. Maybe we could have gotten stoned together. We'll never know. It didn't happen. But I did get to call games, four big names that played for Batavia those 3 years. Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, who could end up being a Hall of Famer, Ryan Madsen, and Marlon Byrd all played for Batavia when I was there. Do you want to guess, Doug, who's the most likable of those four guys, in my opinion, based on my experience with them?
Marlon Byrd.
Marlon was the most entertaining of the four.
Okay.
And they were all likable, but the most likable was Ryan Howard. He was through the roof.
I've met Ryan Howard. I was going to guess that, but I thought it was too easy.
It was too easy, and there you go. But anyway, after that, I did many years of radio in New York, and then eventually I moved to Cleveland in 2011, where I did radio for a very long time. 3 years ago, roughly, I left radio for the podcasting world, and I've been doing my Bet Rivers podcast, The Bullpen, which I was on this morning, and I'll be back on tonight after the Cavs game. And I do another show on YouTube/TV called The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show with some other local guys in Cleveland, including somebody you worked with, Jay Crawford, formerly of ESPN. So I love what I do. I'm so thrilled that I left radio, even though I loved radio, for this space, because it gives so much more freedom. And I love doing this, and I love working with Bet Rivers because it's a great company, and this is a lot of fun. So I'm excited to start talking about baseball games because I love picking baseball games, and it's something you don't get to do very often.
Right. And do you have to go delete any tweets or anything? Because I know it's very chic for radio guys to
Yeah.
mock us TV guys with makeup and things like that. Did you have to kind of tail between your legs that you made the venture over to TV?
No, I still continue, probably to the detriment of my career, to make fun of other media members, including
Good.
including big ones. But no, I mean, yes, TV people read off a teleprompter. A lot of
Right.
cases,
There's the joke.
which
We're
I think is
teleprompter
lame.
jockeys, right?
That's right. And the idea of ever doing a show reading off a teleprompter is awful to me. But it is what it is. TV people get paid more money, so who's got the last laugh?
Right. Most TV. Yeah. There's always those
Yeah.
few radio guys. But yeah, by the way, speaking of reading a prompter, if anyone
Yeah.
wants to Google YouTube or whatever, Charles Barkley teleprompter, it's great. They just put something in there because it's basically Ron Burgundy. He'll read anything. So go check it out. You'll be in for a nice surprise. But it's funny. You took me back to my first TV job.
Yeah.
Well, second, really, after a few months, but 2001 in the Quad Cities, the Quad City River Bandits.
Oh, yeah.
The year the Minnesota Twins had the number 1 pick, took Joe Mauer, and that team had Mauer, Morneau, Durbin, some other guys, and it was great. And that was when Mauer could have gone to FSU and played quarterback and stuff like that. And, so a lot of fun early in our careers. I'm sure we'll take people back. Let's get to some baseball for today. And I mentioned I caught a break with the Padres comeback last night. Same two teams at it in the Bronx. This game on national television as well. TBS, though. Michael King, former Yankee, going against Clark Schmidt, former. And so you're on the road team again. You think the Padres make it back to back? Take it, it's right now at Bet Rivers, it's -112. So slight road chalk, if you will. Over under 8.5, little juice to the under. How are you seeing this one, Adam?
Well, I love the Padres in this one. If you look at the Yankees, when Max Fried, first of all, the Yankees are always, in my opinion, overvalued. A little like the Cowboys in football because there's so many fans and they're a polarizing team. I have felt the Yankees coming into the season were a very overrated team, especially when Garrett Cole got hurt. And if you look at their record on days where Max Fried doesn't pitch, they are 12-16 on days that Max Fried doesn't pitch. That's number one. Number two, the Yankees bullpen, the back end has been bad. Devin Williams is a disaster. Felt like he started right in the ship, and then he blew it again yesterday, whereas the Padres bullpen is lights out. And Michael King, this is his first opportunity to get, revenge against the team that traded him before last season in the Juan Soto deal. And I think Michael King is one. If you made a list of, top 10 under the radar all-star caliber players, Michael King's on the list. So there's a lot. And the Padres are just really good. So I love them tonight. Love the Padres. And I love the over on the strikeouts with Michael King. I liked it before I even saw when I was first making my picks this morning. The number wasn't even up there yet for the strikeouts for King, and then I think 6:30 or 7 it popped up, and I thought I was shocked it was only 5.5 because I love it. The Yankees are averaging over 9 strikeouts per game at the plate, 4th worst in baseball. So a strikeout pitcher, he's got his strikeout rate is huge against this team. So I've rambled enough. I love the Padres, and I love Michael King tonight.
Yeah, I really like that breakdown. I may have to tell you again. Yesterday's show, I liked the Padres all show, and then at the end, I finally pulled the trigger on it. Maybe I get there again today. It's interesting. And join the conversation, guys. Let us know your comments. Jules right now asked us how we look at run line versus the money line in baseball, and we'll get into that. But I do want to mention Adam's, certainly onto something because he mentioned that he wants to incorporate the bullpen for the Yankees because he's betting against them. Yeah. But if you look at the first 5 at Bet Rivers, it's -108. But you have to pay a little extra if you want the game line because the market knows the bullpen is weak. And that, when you factor in that any home team in baseball has a fundamental advantage. So even with the fundamental advantage after the fifth inning, they're still juicing the Padres a little more. So clearly, Adam, I think you're onto something here. And we saw it last night, obviously, with the comeback, Machado with the big hit with the bases chucked.
Yeah.
I can't fault you there. I'm right there with you. No way I would bet the Yankees at all. It's Padres or pass. And the bats were pretty silent. Rodon pitched well. I do not expect that from Schmidt. I'll probably be beyond the Padres with you by the end of the show. And I do think there's something extra when a pitcher is going against his former team. He's going to bring the heat a little bit, a little extra umph. We see it in the playoffs. Guys can reach another decibel or whatever you want to call it on the radar gun. And I certainly would imagine, and frankly, the skipper may let him stay in another batter or two if he's hovering around that 5 strikeout.
I have no faith in him. He got scratched from his last start. So if let's say he starts the game and whatever, I think he had a side, it was like a hip or a side issue there that kind of barked up on him before the game. Well, what if that happens in the first, second inning? Now a Yankee bullpen that's already not good is got to go deeper, which is a disaster. And this is very rare, but I love when you have an experienced, good pitcher facing a lineup that has not really seen him, and that's the case. Paul Goldschmidt is 2 for 3 against him, limited at bats, but that's good. Cody Bellinger has 1 at bat against him. Nobody else I think Pablo Reyes may have walked against him once. He stinks anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the rest of their lineup has never faced King. And I know some of them were his teammates, but still, I like the good pitcher against a team he hasn't really faced.
And I don't think a pitching coach or something that worked with him the previous year or whatever will be able to all of a sudden tip off all the bat like he's some easy thing to. I mean, otherwise we would see that all throughout baseball.
That's right.
Accordingly. So let's go to Paul Skeens pitching, who I'm just always fascinated with anytime he's on the bump. The reigning National League Rookie of the Year. Pirates in St. Louis to face the Cardinals. And from a handicapping perspective, as we pull back the curtain a little bit, Adam, I'm curious. Career high 5 earned earlier this year for Skeens on April 8th. So almost a month ago. It was at home, not at Busch Stadium, but he gave up 5 earned, got touched up, 6 hits, did still manage to go 6 innings and strike out 7. It's worth mentioning the temperature was 38 degrees, wind chills in the 20s. So that won't be the case here in the Gateway City, but the Cardinals bats got the Skeens. That's something a lot of people can't say.
Yeah.
To what degree does that kind of factor into your handicapping a month later with Skeens facing the same lineup?
It doesn't. For me, it doesn't move the needle much. I mean, certainly I consider it.
Right.
But it wouldn't push me one way or the other. For me, to me, this game's a stay away only because the Cardinals, I like the way they're playing right now, and I like the way Liberatore's pitched. The thing with Skeens is, like, you look at his overall numbers, and they look good. We know he's as talented as any pitcher in baseball. But he hasn't been just in general, and this is more concern, Doug, more than the head-to-heads with the Cardinals and the fact that he struggled against them, is just the fact he hasn't looked quite as dominant this year, especially lately. His last start, I know the Cubs have a good lineup, so maybe that's not fair, and he actually pitched well for 4 innings, but then he gave 3 home runs in the 5th inning. And you're like, what is happening here? And in that game, I think he only had like 2 or 3 strikeouts. He's averaging less than a strikeout per inning, which for him is pretty eye-opening because last year his strikeout percentage was ridiculous.
The prop was 8.5 every game.
Exactly. So, and that was with him pitching 5-6 innings.
Right.
So the fact that he's striking out less than 9 per game or less than 1 per inning is, I'm not going to say alarming. That's too strong, but it's interesting or eye-opening. And because normally I would lean towards Skeens here and the Pirates, but I don't love, even though I love him long-term, the way the Cardinals are playing, as bad as the Pirates are besides Skeens, I don't want to bet on the Pirates as a favorite in this particular situation. So it would be, for me, it's a stay away. But
yeah, I mean, look, as bettors, we all have FOMO, right? That's just in our DNA.
That's true.
There's nothing more painful than to like a side, not bet it, and see it win, right? Like it's just the mind tricks we play on ourselves is so crazy. So I understand seeing Skeens relatively cheap at a buck 21 and wanting to pull the trigger and things like that. But Adam, I think you presented an excellent case. It's, you really should only bet things, whether it be a point spread, an over under, a money line in this case. I always try to ask myself, especially futures tickets, unless it's huge, like lofty 100 to 1, something like that.
Hmm.
Can this bet win or will this bet win?
Right.
And I like to fire games that like I really feel confident. Obviously, we don't
Hmm.
have Biff's Almanac, although I do have it on my bookshelf over there.
Do you really?
That's a movie prop.
Oh, nice.
We don't have the actual one or crystal ball. Like obviously, there's an unknown, a giant unknown here. But I do think I need to see kind of Skeens regain that form for me to kind of bet into the market that is channeling last year's stats. Now, with that being said, and to answer my own question, I'm
Yeah.
with you. I think it's part of the equation, but I'm not going to overreact, especially with the weather being what it was in that
Right.
last outing against St. Louis and this lineup. Now, the Cardinals do have the second best batting average, team batting average in all of baseball. Runs are about 10th in the big. So that's not a bad offense or anything like that. It's decent, but I think there's something Skeens is you don't get to the big leagues. You don't become the number one pick without being a serious competitor. And knowing that he gave up 5 earned to the Cardinals a month ago, I think the prep's going to be there. Not that he wasn't prepping in other
Sure.
starts, but I think he's going to bring it and be focused almost to the point where, like we were talking about, uh, with King. So
Right.
I'm going to actually go no run first inning. That's going to be my
I
play
like that.
here. Libertor, like you said, has been solid. Skeens has gotten into trouble. You mentioned the 3 home runs later in the game against the Cubs
Yeah.
when he was at home. I think Skeens is going to bring it, and he's not messing around, given he gave up 5 earned. Both their track records show that they start first time through the lineups are really strong. Now, it is a little juicy, all things considered, at a buck 43, but I'm okay to go there because I have the Pirates lineup. Not impressive. I mean,
No.
West was on their team total over, and I thought he was going to be a savant. He had 2 runs right away
Yeah.
in the top of the first yesterday, but they only managed 3. So I'll roll with that. I think that's how I'm going to roll with this game.
Let me ask you this, Doug. I mean, if I had to pick it, if you forced me to pick, I'd take the Pirates.
Right.
If you had to, which way would you go? And you mentioned those stats for the Cardinals, the offensive stats. To me, I'm surprised, like when I hear those stats,
Yeah.
because I thought the Cardinals lineup would not be very good, and I thought the team would not be very good, and they're right around 500 now as they've played better. So if you had to pick, which way would you go? And are you a believer in the Cardinals sticking where they are roughly? Are you buying into the Cardinals offense for the season?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we're only about 35, 40 games into the season. St. Louis, and you talk about earlier, we laughed about making fun of TV people. I always like to make fun of Cardinals fans because they're the first ones to tell you how great they are and all this
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
But I will say the Cardinals do typically deliver, right? Like they've been a franchise that will find a way, even sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. You trust their front office, all those things. And they do have some hitters and things like that. I get it. And I think their rotation's actually better than I thought it would be. I think they have a lot of like number 2 starters, but
Yeah,
and
yeah,
no
yeah.
aces.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the division's tough. I think the Cubs are going to be there all year. Um, Baseball's tough, man, and I just think that division's going to be a lot of cannibalization. So, but going as for this game, I would bet the Pirates minus 120. You still have Skeens, and he's able, and he showed this last year a lot, to get out of jams.
Yeah.
And I think some of it is concentration later in the second, third time. So I bet you the right sort of staff is working with him, like the coaching staff, not the pitching. So the coaching staff's going to work with him. And I think you just have to roll with the Pirates in this situation. But that offense, man, it leaves a lot to be desired for sure.
Yeah. It's hard to bet on a team when they're so inept offensively.
And
It's
that's
tough.
the beauty of
Yeah.
today's betting menus, right? You can
Yeah.
really isolate. Like I
Yeah.
think I'm going to just back Michael King's strikeouts later in the show. I think they're obviously correlated to a win. He's going to stay in the game, all that. So I just sometimes want to isolate a team total, a first 5 team total. I mean, you can really, and I think Skeens is a perfect example of not having to rely on the Pirates offense. You can just get total outs recorded or a
Right.
prop along those lines where you don't even have to worry about the offense or the bullpen preserving a victory if Skeens, puts Pittsburgh in place to win.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be back in the day if you were, even before you could do anything online, and
Right.
it used to be you just you'd bet on games, or even if you bet with your friends or the guy down the street, whatever it was. And in those days, it was all about the starting pitcher, because the starting pitcher would go at least 7,
Yeah.
certainly 8 or 9. You and I are old enough, we're probably about around the same age. That the game started, you expected the pitcher to go the whole game. And I don't say this to complain about baseball. I love baseball. I like most of what's happened. But you have to bet differently, because even though the starting pitcher is still important, it's not nearly as important as the starting pitcher was even 10, certainly 20, 30, 40 years ago in terms of betting.
Very well said. I remember in high school betting on the Braves when they had Maddox and things like that.
I mean,
you just knew what you were going to get. He could pitch complete games and things along those lines. But now you have more flexibility in that regard. You have pitcher props. And like I said, so I was just trying to do a quick Skeens, total outs recorded is 17.5 at Bet Rivers. The juice is minus 167. So if he goes 6 innings, you win. Even if it's tied, even if he's losing, you win your bet. Now you need him to stay 6 innings. And you said, he hasn't lasted. He only went 5 innings in his last outing against Chicago, but he gave up those 3 homers late. Dodgers, he went 6 1/3. The Guardians 7, Nationals 6. So he's gone at least 6 in every outing but his last one and his first one. So maybe that's the play, and that's why it's $1.67 and not $1.21 like the money line.
Quick story, Doug, about starting pitchers going deep. When I was working in Batavia in those years that I mentioned, the Phillies had their pitching coordinator was a guy named Johnny Padres, who was a really good pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers way back in the day, older guy. And we would talk. He would tell me stories all the time when he would come to Batavia. Great storyteller. But real quick, he was telling me about one particular game in the playoffs with the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I said, "Did you pitch a complete game?" And he looked, just for asking that question, he looked at me like I stole his dog. He said, "Of course I did." He was so angry about the idea of not finishing his own game, and it's just so different now. But it makes it more challenging and in a way more fun. But I'm with you. I like Paul Skeens over 17.5.
Yeah, but it's also weird because it's like load management in the NBA. It's not like preserving these injuries is working. These guys are still getting injured. So it's not like these all of a sudden Tommy John surgeries went away. Like, no, they're still getting hurt.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to figure it out. Join the conversation. Let us know in the comment section. Bull, you got a fan? I don't know. It's like a first initial, but Bull Baby. So they're fired up that you're in the show. A fan of yours. There you go.
That's my man Z.
Z Warch. Okay. Z.
He's my producer for my podcast. So we love him. Z, thank you, buddy.
Awesome. Let's go to another relatively high-profile game, and we didn't cover it yesterday, so I definitely want to touch on this one in the desert, maybe a little later in the evening for those trying to get some action coming home from work, things like that. The Mets at the Diamondbacks. The Metropolitans never make it easy. It was a Metsian victory, but still a victory nonetheless. Led 5-1, hung on 5-4. Same 2 teams obviously back at it today. David Peterson on the bump against Zach Gallen. Now, you and I both expect good things from New York here, but we're going to play it a little differently. Mets are plus 100, Adam. Why do you like them?
Well, now Zach Gallen pitched well against the Mets the last time out. However, overall, if you look at his numbers, he has gotten absolutely killed by left-handed hitters. And the Mets can put 5 lefties and at least 4 of the 5 are, including switch hitters. 4 of the 5 are really good. And I feel like when you have a good lineup like the Mets do with veteran hitters, even though Zach Gallen's a good pitcher, I do like being, we talked about this a little bit with the Skeens against the Cardinals. The Cardinals lineup, even though they're playing well, I don't think of them as that good a lineup. So it didn't factor in as much for me. But I love the Mets lineup. I love their veterans. I like their left-handed hitters. And so I like their chances of bouncing back against Zach Gallen, who overall has pitched poorly against the OPS against his, the hitters OPS against him from lefties is through the roof. Like he'd have a 7 ERA based on just lefties. So that's a big part of the reason that I like the Mets tonight. And plus, they're the dog. So I think they're the better team. I like the matchup with Gallen, and I know it's only plus 100, but still, whenever I could take the dog in a game where I like the team better and I like the pitcher better, I'm going to go with the Mets. Even though Gallen's a better pitcher overall in this matchup, I don't like him.
I see it similarly. I do not think Gallen, like the advanced metrics have never been sort of his friend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just say a guy's lucky. I mean, you got to give some guy a credit for getting out of jams and things like that. But the balls in play stuff, all that advanced stuff really he's sort of escaped. And there's always been regression with him throughout a season. So I'm going to make 2 wagers. And I know you're on the total as well. We'll come back to you, but I'm going to bet the Mets win the race to 3 runs. So it's kind of like soccer in 3-way line.
Yep.
If it's a 2-1 final, neither team gets to 3 runs. It's a loser. You have to at least get to 3 runs. You have to get there first. Now the Mets are the road team, so that's factored into the price. It's minus $120. To your point, I like the lineup. I like the matchup against Gallen. I think they can feast on him early, and I don't have to rely on the bullpen per se to preserve a win. And I feel like Arizona's got a lot of it's almost like Pac-12 after dark was. It's just some craziness in a lot of their games. They have the big outfield. They have good hitters. So I just feel like the Diamondbacks get to bullpens and things like that. So I don't want to get involved. I'm just hoping, obviously, it's an automatic winner. If the Mets put up a crooked number, the 3 in the first inning, then I'm golden. But I'll back Peterson on the bump to kind of hold the Arizona lineup in check and win the race to 3 runs. Minus 120. Now, one of the main reasons I like that is because I think Francisco Lindor is going to go off. 2+ total bases is plus 106. Now, why do I think Lindor? Well, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this sort of overarching, when you see a stat like this, is he's plus, in 15 games at Chase Field, he's got a 364 batting average, 3 dingers, 5 doubles, 3 triples. So I think it's a good play, and various reasons can contribute to why a guy likes playing. Maybe he just likes a favorite restaurant, or he sees a trainer that he like, whatever it may be. Just sees the ball well in the backdrop of the outfield wall and the environment of the dome, or whatever it is at Chase tonight. So I'll roll. I think 15 games for me is enough of a sample size, and Lindor is a great hitter, and he's got a good protection in the lineup as well. So I think the Mets offense can get going against Gallen. It's sort of like anticipating versus reacting. I think I want to get ahead of this Gallen fade.
Yeah, I wonder if the fans of the show right now that are tuned in or that will be tuning in later are excited or scared that you and I have been on the same page on almost everything so far. You never know. But I'm with you. I love Lindor. Now, that comes to something that we could talk about at some point here. Your biases. I covered him in Cleveland. I interviewed him when he was still in the minors, and he was like 18, and he was the nicest kid. I'm a huge Francisco Lindor fan, but I grew up in New York as a Cubs fan, so I hate the Mets. So I think those things, the fact that I love Lindor but hate the Mets, kind of balance it out for me.
I like that.
Not being biased, but I love the over on the total basis for Lindor, and I'm totally buying into what you're selling in terms of his success at Chase Field, because there are guys, as you said, for whatever reason. And remember, when Lindor was with the Guardians, he had spring training in Arizona. So maybe there was something there, that started this, even though he's in spring training in Florida now. But there are guys. I know Ian Happ is great in Pittsburgh. Tommy Edman is always great at Wrigley Field. Once it's a legit, if it's 5 at bats, 7 at bats, I'm not ready to jump with 2 feet. But when you're talking about veteran players like Francisco Lindor, I'm all in. So if he dominates at a ballpark, obviously doesn't mean he's going to do it every single game. But I think there's definitely something to it. I just don't buy that it's a coincidence, especially in Arizona, where more often than not they've had at least a solid team, if not better than that. So, so I'm buying what you're selling on both of those bets there. on
Cool.
the Mets.
And you wanted to touch on the total before we move to the next game.
Yeah, because I don't love either pen right now. They've had Arizona's top two relievers got hurt. They went to Shelby Miller, who had been lights out early in the season. He got his first save. And then his second save opportunity against Philly, I want to say it was Sunday. 2 out, nobody on, gives up a home run to Schwarber and then 3 straight walks. So we already talked about the fact that we both like, the Mets to do some damage on Gallen early. Well, then late, I think the Mets can score, and I think Arizona's lineup is good enough, right, that they should be able to do something against a Mets bullpen that I don't love either, and I don't trust them totally either. So I think this is going to go way over double digits in this game.
Okay, all right. So over 9 for Adam, as well as the Mets plus 100, and then I'm on the Lindor prop over 2 plus total bases, and then Mets win the race to 3 runs. Let's hope the Mets offense wakes up right early and get scoring early and often. A few other games we're going to get to. I want to start with a team that really a lot of baseball bettors are wondering, is this an anomaly? Is this an outlier? Because it's been a cash cow. Fading or betting on the Rockies has been the single worst thing you could have done with your bankroll. They're down 18.78 units so far, right? No, there's no one even close to as bad as they've been. 6 wins, 6-28. Ridiculous. So, as you would imagine, there's some big lines against them, things like that. You can also find ways to be creative, but you can just lay the run line. Obviously, the Tigers are $1.82 here at Bet Rivers. They're the road team, so they're guaranteed to get their 9th inning up. So if you need a late run to cover a run line, how are you seeing this one?
Yeah, I like I'm against the Rockies, of course, but I like them on the run line because obviously you get a much better number there. What is it, minus 115 as opposed to minus 182. And the reason I'm willing, some people don't want to bet the run line because you're like, I just want my team. I just want to bet on them to win. I don't have to worry about they have to win by 2 runs. But look at the Rockies. In 34 games, they've been outscored by 89 runs. Their score they're being doubled almost every game, if you think about that. They have scored 106 runs. I mean, that is hideous. It is by far the worst in Major League Baseball. And they've allowed 195 runs. Only the Marlins have given up more. So they have the second worst pitching, the worst hitting. The Tigers have been great. And Jackson Jobe got roughed up in his last inning, last time out. But overall, he's been solid. And what do we know about Detroit? Their bullpen is lights out. And I got to be honest, coming into the season, I loved their rotation. I was not as high on their bullpen as a lot of other people were. I didn't think what they did at the end of last year with their pen was sustainable. We'll see as the season goes on. But right now, with a bunch of guys that, unless you're a diehard baseball fan or baseball bettor, you don't know. Tommy Kahnle, Will Vest, Bo Breesky. Their closer from last year, who made the All-Star team, is in the minors. And yet all they do is get outs to Tigers. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Rockies got shut out tonight, even at Coors Field. But I think the Tigers will win comfortably. And so I'm comfortable getting the better number and laying the 1.5 runs.
We want you to join the conversation. Jules chimes in reference to what Adam said. Minus 89 run differential should be an arrestable offense.
Oh, I agree.
And Jules also asked about run line versus money line, and I knew we would talk about this game.
Yeah.
So what happens is the market has assigned a value based on years and years of data on what the price, the extra price you should pay for a half a run. So we know this in the NFL with buying a half point on a 3-point spread costs a lot more than a huge point spread of Georgia in football going from 26 to 25.5.
Right.
Not all half points are created equal, right?
Sure.
We know that. So run differential, things like that factors into the money line. So it factors in the over under of a game, right? So the run line versus the money line and things like that. But when you have a situation, in my opinion, like this with Colorado, they are an outlier team. So I don't think the market has adjusted to just how atrocious this Rocky squad is. So the fact that the math guys who shape the market, who use their models, a large part of the modeling uses last year's stats as a baseline. And I think that's sometimes erroneous when you have a pitiful team like you do Colorado. Now, I've also been nicknamed the betting bully by buddies in the past. So when there's a bad team, I'm willing to bully them. But I think there's opportunity still when you have such a bad team like the Rockies. So I'm going to bet into the Colorado. Oh, and by the way, in their last 10 losses, so yes, they've won a couple games, but so they're not on a 10-game losing streak. But each of their 10 losses have been by at least 2 runs or more. And then the one previous to that, so their 11 losses ago was in extra innings on the road. So Kansas City could have scored more if it was the top half of the inning, but they didn't. But they just needed to walk it off. So the fact that the Tigers are on the road, I think, is favorable for a run line price of -113 or 14. So I like that. And then I'm also going to play another kind of unique prop that I did with the Mets. I'm going to go a prop that's offered. It's like a double result on Bet Rivers. Tigers to score first and win the game +100.
Yeah.
So I'm banking on them
Like
getting first ups. I think they have the pitching matchup. I think the Rockies lineup is terrible. I do like Jackson Jobe to bounce back from that little bit of a shaky outing. Dollinger's been okay for Colorado in his last game, but he was getting touched up before that. So he's nothing to write home about. And it's +100. And you just need him to win the game. So I'm going to go 2 ways to fade the Rockies. And I think it's a fun way to sort of play this game. We'll see how it unfolds.
I think you will win that first bet, the first part of that bet, the score first in the top of the first. That's my prediction.
That's kind of, and with the Coors Field, we know the altitude, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of what my thought process was. Now you have an upset special. Feed the people, Adam.
Yes. So I want to talk about the Reds here. I love this game, and let me tell you why. The Reds are +185, which is obviously tremendous value to get +185. The Reds and Braves have similar records, of course. The Braves got off to a terrible start, and they've played much better lately. But here's the thing. On the surface, you see the pitching matchup, Andrew Abbott against Chris Sale, and you're like, well, that's a big advantage for the Braves. And in most cases, I think it would be. But here's the thing. Andrew Abbott is a left-hander, okay? The Braves team OPS against lefties is 625.
Oh,
that is hideous. And, there's a lot of good young pitchers on Cincinnati. I know they've lost a few here, but overall they've played really well. They're well managed. I like Andrew Abbott. I know he hasn't completely put it all together yet, but against the Braves lineup that I know they've been better lately, but overall have been spotty. The one guy I'm worried about is Austin Riley, against the lefty. But the rest of that lineup has just been horrible against lefties, and so that's why I'm gonna fade Chris Sale. I don't expect him to go deep into this game, and so I'm gonna take the Reds to be able to overcome the Braves on the road against a lineup, as I said, that struggles against left-handed pitching.
Well, and Abbott's been good for every outing except in Coors Field, which I will personally allow a lot of latitude on that front.
Yes.
So I think and then +188, you can't go wrong.
Right.
Well, you can, but technically, but that's certainly enticing on that front. So I like it. Now, did you think about first 5 at all, knowing you'd have the lefty and kind of isolate that betting angle you had? Did you consider sort of just the first 5 money line?
I did not, and I should have. And I need, as we go forward on this show, I need to, in some ways, I'm an old school bettor, and I don't go with as many bets of that nature as I should. But I love that too. And I think as we go forward with this show, I'm going to make more bets of that nature going forward.
Yeah, and they adjust it. We talked about it with the Yankees Padres game, I believe, as well. But the first 5, they're gonna you can get some plus money, but you're only getting +170 in the first 5 because of that. Now, obviously, the Cincinnati manager and staff and everything will look to probably bring some lefties out of the pen,
Right.
and kind of stick with that. And hopefully Abbott can go 6 innings instead of just 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But that's something to consider. But the price is adjusted for sure.
Yeah. No doubt.
Okay.
Yep.
And you have another total, Cubs Giants, your beloved Cubbies. Talk to the people.
Yeah, and first of all, before I give that, it's something you and I talked about this on the phone a little bit, Doug. You got to be careful when you're betting your team. And for me, for baseball, I know it sounds weird, but I kind of have two teams. I'm a diehard, born and raised Cubs fan, even though I grew up in New York. Anybody that knows me knows I love the Cubs. I'm passionate about it. But I've worked in Cleveland for 14 years, and I love the Guardians too. Obviously the World Series in 2016 put me in a pretty rough spot. I root for the Guardians against everybody else but the Cubs. So you got to take that into account when you're betting on your team. You got to really think about, am I allowing my fandom to get in the way?
Right.
And so I often stay away from the Cubs, especially when it comes to winning, like in terms of betting on them to win but one of the most reliable things in baseball this year right now is the fact that the Cubs offense has been phenomenal. You look at last night against the Giants, they scored 10 or 9. I can't remember if it was 9 or 10. And that was with Kyle Tucker, their best player, doing nothing last night. They are getting production throughout the lineup, night in and night out. And you say, well, okay, they're facing Justin Verlander. He's pitched better lately. Well, he has pitched better lately, but let me give you this, if I can find it here. What did I do with this? I can't remember. I stupidly didn't write it down. But Verlander's last few starts, he has faced terrible lineups.
Rockies, Rangers, and Angels.
There you go. Thank you. Now, the Rangers, you hear the Rangers, you think, oh, they got a great lineup. On paper, they do, but their offense has been awful. We already talked about the Rockies, and the Angels stink on offense too. So, yeah, he's pitched a little better, Verlander, but he's in his 40s. He's facing the best lineup in baseball. They just scored. I know just because they scored double digits yesterday doesn't mean, they pummeled the Brewers for a couple of days, and then the last game of that series, they couldn't score. Well, the last game of that series, they were facing Freddie Garcia, who's one of the best pitchers. Justin Verlander is not one of the best pitchers in baseball anymore. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Cubs covered that over-under by themselves. But even if they don't, the Giants will do enough offensively on their own to get over this line easy. I think, and Colin Ray quietly has pitched pretty well since the Cubs brought him up, but he's not a great pitcher. He's not pitching a shutout. Giants got a decent lineup. They'll score a couple of runs. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think we could see 12, 13 runs in this game. I'm surprised it's only 8. It was 7.5 last night for yesterday's game, and only 8 now. What do you think?
I know. I had the
you
over
with me on this or no?
I couldn't believe it. Well, can I interest you in the Cubs team total? Just the Cubs offense.
Yes.
Over 4.5 plus 105.
Oh, yeah, love that. I mean, that feels too good to be true, doesn't it?
You might only get 8 innings. You can do you can even do a first 5 team total. Just because it's, you can isolate Verlander on top, thoroughly.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. Did my camera dump out? I don't know.
Yeah, you froze up. You just froze up. At least that's what I'm seeing.
All right.
There you go. We'll get Doug right back in here.
That's the beauty of it. All right. See, just like that.
It happens. Things freeze sometimes.
Yeah. All right. So let's recap our top players. And I said by the end of the show, I'm probably going to be tailing you. I am going to join you on the Mike King over 5.5 strikeouts in the Bronx here, is facing his former mates. I do like that. So that's a play I'm going to add that I didn't officially add throughout the show. And I'm also on the no score first inning and I'm not even a big Nerfy or Yerfy guy. I rarely do it, even though I do have the attention span of a hamster and like immediate results. I do kind of abstain from that unless I have a really good angle. So I'm going to go Pirates, Cardinals, no run first inning. And then I'm on Lindor, 2+ total bases. Mets win the race to 3 runs. The Tigers run line, and also the Tigers to score first and win the game. And that's it. I mean, that's a beefy handful of plays. What about you?
All right. So my list here, I like the Padres to win against the Yankees. I like Michael King over 5.5 strikeouts. You mentioned that one already. I like the Mets to win. I like the Mets and Diamondbacks over 9 runs. I'm going to jump on board with you on the Mets race to 3 runs. I'll go official on that too at minus 120. I like the Tigers minus 1.5 on the run line, minus 114 at the Rockies. I like the Cubs Giants over 8, and I like the Reds plus 185 against the Braves. There you go. And I'll jump on with you on the Tigers score first too. I'm with you on that too.
And win plus 100. Okay.
Yes, I'm in.
Good.
I'm in.
I think you're on to. I mean, I don't care if the Reds don't win. That's a good bet at plus 188. So
absolutely,
and that's what we have to do in this racket of baseball betting. Find value. So don't forget, I mentioned it earlier. We have another new show that started this week, Betting Weekly Fast Break. That's top of the hour, moments away. Also Monday through Friday. But Adam, it's been a pleasure. Just as awesome as I thought it'd be. And we're on together for the next couple of days.
That's right.
Obviously, on all these shows, we're going to have rotating bettors and handicappers, but you and I are doing the baseball for the next couple of days as well.
Sounds good. Talk to everybody tomorrow.
All right, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And for Adam the Bull, I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll see you back here tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, for Betting Weekly Hardball.